Okay, so we're continuing on with section 2.3. This is the second assignment. And we're still dealing with product and quotient rule. Okay, and here we're going to deal with things where the dependent variable is not x. Okay, so what do we do in this case? Well, we got a couple of things. We could always do this. Now wait, this really isn't such a big deal if you think about it. We don't need to panic because all we do now is instead of doing d dx, if we have a t or w or whatever, we just switch them out and now it becomes d dt or v or w or whatever you got. And that's the variable you're taking the derivative of. Well, okay, we can still go back to panic, but to me, I think this is a much more reasonable approach. And let's deal with an example. I've got a function which is t squared sine of t. All right, so the first thing I notice, there's no x's. I don't even have an x here. Okay, panic. Now stop. So this is not that big a deal. We can do the same thing. There's f, it's t squared, and there's g. So now I come through. And I write this down. F is t squared. G is sine of t. Now, you can see the problem here with Newtonian is that we lose what we have as opposed to something like this. F prime just tells me I'm taking the derivative. It doesn't necessarily tell me what. But in this case, we're taking the derivative of t because f is a function of t. So this is power rule. It's 2t. G prime is the same idea. It's cosine of t. Okay. That was really the only new skill we had in this lesson. Now we do, and this is product. So I'm going to have f prime times g. So I'm going to have 2t sine of t plus f g prime t squared cosine of t. And I'll go ahead and factor a t out. So I'm going to have t times 2 sine of t plus t cosine of t. And that is your derivative with respect to t. See, now that wasn't so bad. All right. Now the other thing, and you may not necessarily think this is true, let's go back and review a little bit of your trigs, specifically your reciprocals. If you remember, tangent is sine over cosine. Cotangent was 1 over tangent, so it will be cosine over sine. Secant was 1 over cosine, and cosecant is 1 over sine. So how does all of this have to do with product and quotient rules, and why should I care, and why should I have to deal with this? And here is why. you're going to bump into little puppies like this. Y equals tangent, and y is a function of theta. Tangent of theta over theta. Okay, well, a couple of problems here then. Number one, it's not x, so panic. Number two, I didn't tell you how to find tangent. Or did I? So y of theta is going to be sine of theta over theta times cosine of theta. And once you're at this point, you should recognize this as quotient rule, because that's exactly what it is. And what I've got is f over g. So f is sine of theta. G equals theta cosine of theta. Okay, f prime equals cosine of theta. G prime, oops, we've got a product rule. Looky there. I snuck a product rule in the middle of quotient rule. How about that? So we have to go back in, and then let's do sort of a separate f and g here for this one. These will be different from these other ones. But for this one, my f is theta, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to use all of this to get g prime. And my little g here is going to be cosine theta. All right, let's even change what we call it. So let's call this h and j. So h is going to be theta. J is going to be cosine of theta. I take the derivatives. H prime is 1. Remember, I take with respect to theta. J prime is negative sine of theta. So G prime now, I have to put these together. So G prime will be cosine of theta, 1 times that, minus theta sine of theta. And what I tried to do here, I know I mixed it up, but I wanted a positive out front here. Okay, so now we've got F prime, G, and G prime. Now it took us a little bit because we had to do product rule inside of quotient rule, and there will be some where you're going to have to be doing quotient rule inside of product rule, or quotient rule inside of quotient rule, or product rule inside of product rule. But all it is just a matter of keeping track of what you've got and where you're dealing with it. Okay, so I was originally dealing with, gee, now I've even forgotten what I was dealing with to begin with. Oh yeah, quotient rule. We had tangent theta over theta. So now I've got F. So quotient rule, I need to do F prime times G. So F prime times G will end up as theta cosine squared of theta, cosine times cosine, minus. Okay, and then I want to do F times G prime down here. So it's going to be minus sine of theta times cosine of theta minus theta sine of theta. And all this is going to be over G squared, which was cosine, and I square it, of theta. theta squared, cosine squared of theta. Okay. And I think I left a theta. No, we're good. Okay. So now we come back in here, and I'm going to do some distributing. So I'm going to have theta cosine squared of theta minus sine theta cosine theta plus theta sine squared of theta. All of that will be over theta squared cosine squared of theta. All right. This ought to ring a bell for you. Cosine squared plus sine squared. I'm going to put those together. So I'm going to have theta, and I'm going to factor theta out. So now I'm going to have cosine squared of theta plus sine squared of theta. And if you don't recognize this as 1, you're in deep trouble. Minus sine theta cosine of theta all over theta squared cosine squared of theta. And then when that goes to 1, so I'm going to have theta minus sine theta cosine theta over theta squared cosine squared of theta. Okay, and there's nothing I can factor out. So this now becomes my derivative, and we are done with it.